So welcome to the podcast, both. A bit of a different series on our hands today with some interesting content that I really want to cover. I'm going to learn a load, which is why I'm really excited about today, because primarily I don't work with you guys day by day, but I've had quite a fair bit to do with you guys last year, which I've loved every minute of. And yeah, this is going to be a bit of a hot topic in the sector, as well as learning about you two. So if we just start by introducing yourself, let me know what your role in the business is and how long you've been with us.
Okay, I'm Fiona Cullinane. I am the Senior Substation Engineer and I've been here 7 months.
Joyce Wilson, Head of Engineering, and I've been with the business since April 25, so I'm eagerly looking forward to my first year anniversary.
Yeah, a few months after me, I was the 14th, so
yeah.
I've been here just over a year now, which is flown by, and it's been quite the epic journey. Now, let's just quickly touch on the narrative of the accents, and this is important that we do this.
The elephant in the room.
Because I'm sure someone's going to watch this and go, Green Gen Cymru, Wales, infrastructure, well, where's this going?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a good place to touch on this because I don't have the same accent as you. But here's the thing. Power, infrastructure and grid. Mm-hmm. Scotland are way ahead. Mm-hmm. So I think GGC's place on this is that we are and have been and will continue to bring in the best we can get into the business. And sadly for you two,
that's why we're here.
You've ended up with us. So I think it's really important to touch on why we do have a fair few Scottish voices, right from leadership all the way down to ground level staff who are new into the business, learning, coming through the ranks, whatever that may be. They're everywhere for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So I would really like to start from the base with you both, if we could. Joyce, your infrastructure grid life timeline is a little longer. So if we just start with you in terms of, I did that really nice, I think.
Oh, you did. You're always pretty decent. I'm not saying Joyce.
I don't.
You're a bit.
Time served.
I'm quite happy to put numbers on it. It's,
Well, you can do. I'll leave that to you.
Fine.
If you just let us know like how you've ended up in the sector, how long you've been here for, and a few people you've worked with to get to this point, that'd be great.
Okay, so I have been in the sector for a few years. Next year will be my 30th year in this industry, and I've came to this industry in a very kind of conventional manner, you know, Scottish. So did standard grades, hires, CSYS, 6 years at school. Left there and went to university, did 4 years at university, left university, went into a graduate training programme. And in my last year at university, I had sort of specialised in power systems. So when an opportunity came up to go to what was at the time Rolls-Royce Industrial Power Group for my graduate training, that seemed to fit the bill for me. The industry's changed an awful lot since there was that kind of mid to late 90s period. There's businesses have come and gone. There was, you know, the regulation has changed within the industry as well. But I was very much on the sort of the contracting side of it in that place. So by the time I finished my training, I was a protection engineer. I had travelled all over the world in my 2 years, and then went into my first appointment. And then at that point, I was based in Leeds, and we were working with National Grid. We were working with Yorkshire Electric, with Northern Electric. Again, two names that are not with us anymore, but they have now become Northern Power Grid, and you know that kind of then morphed into project management, and then I actually moved over onto the other side from contracting into the DNO distribution networks. Again, there was no plan to my career. It's just I've kind of followed where my curiosity has gone, and to some degree followed where the industry was changing. So I've moved from Yorkshire Electric, Northern Electric. Where else have I been? Moved to SSE, again based in the north of England, but remote from SSE South. So again, I'm quite used to, knocking the accent, I'm quite used to sort of working remote and being in a satellite office from where the works are. And then that role in SSE was with them for 15 years prior to coming over to GGC. Allowed me to move from England back over the border in the north of Scotland, because like you say, the industry in Scotland's changed with the subsidies for the renewables industry, and the huge massive ramp up we had of mostly wind farms to start with, and it fundamentally changed how, and as across the UK, it's changing how the network is being asked to operate. For years, the network was there to service, to supply demand, and you had huge gas and oil, whatever it is, you know, the traditional power sources. And there's a change, and that change has been driven by government. It's been driven by by people and our wants to look to more sustainable ways of living. And so Scotland is broadly 15 years ahead of where Wales are on that journey, which kind of answers your other question about why there's so many Scottish voices in Green Gen Cymru. And it is quite weird going to different events and they go, Green Gen Cymru, you're not Welsh. And you're like, no, I'm not. Scotland's been making this transition for 15 plus years. I have learned a huge amount in that time. So my career has changed from protection to project management to network development, which is what I was doing when I left there. And I've brought those skills and things that I've learned and sort of little bits of knowledge that I have of many, many different facets of that, and hopefully to good effect within GGC.
Before we move on to you, Fiona, open floor question. Is it, and please be honest, is it general knowledge at where you were previously in Scotland area that Wales is behind the curve with grid capacity, or were you surprised to learn the situation we're in?
For me, probably surprised, to be honest. I don't look really past Scotland.
Yeah, because that's where you were, that was your area of work,
Yeah, you don't think about it because you don't need to know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I was kind of, because we were in that network development sphere, you're kind of aware of the targets, because we still are going through connections reform, which is looking at, how do we, as an industry, answer what the GB as a whole network, as a whole country actually requires in terms of energy mix and how we get what is needed to where it is needed. So I think as much as I was aware of is that, Scotland, they had set their targets for 2030, the net zero for 2030, Wales 2035. But broadly speaking, we're all chasing the same, 5 years in this industry is not a long time. But that was about as much as I was aware of. So probably not the actual state of play in the efforts to achieve that target.
Fiona, obviously, as we've touched on, your career is a little shorter. However, it's definitely broad from the pre-conflab we had. So just tell us about your introduction and how it's got you to here.
So very similar, a little bit to Joyce at the beginning. Went to school, did standard grades, did tyres, then ended up going to do mechanical engineering at Strathclyde. To be honest, picked that because I didn't actually know what I wanted to do, but I did want to do engineering, but I didn't know what type. But mechanical seemed to cover quite a wee bit. I did a bit of civils, did a bit of electrical, so I kind of was just quite open to anything. Graduated there with a master's and then didn't actually know what I wanted to do after uni, so stayed at uni and did a PhD. And then I thought, you know what, I better get a job. And earn something better money than what it was with my PhD. And it was I hadn't heard of SSE that I had gone to do the graduate scheme until I actually saw a board that they had a lot of sponsorship that was built in a building at Strathclyde, and I walked past them and went, SSE, what is that? So it's all I'm just naive when it comes to these things. I don't pay attention to a lot of things in life. I just walk past things. So I like to know. So I applied for the graduate scheme. At that time, I didn't realise it was for transmission. I actually thought it was for renewables. But I got into the graduate scheme within transmission, and luckily I did because that was their first graduate scheme in transmission that they had. So I think there was like 6 of us that kind of joined. And initially, I kind of started out as being they wanted me to join future networks, which was basically kind of things that we could potentially come on to the network and stuff like that, trial innovations and stuff. But that wasn't really what I kind of fancied. So I ended up going into doing substations, and quite glad I did because it's actually quite interesting. So I was there, did substation design for maybe 10 years, and then went over to network design. That's where I worked very closely with Joyce, but met Joyce during my graduate scheme. So kind of built that, and then from there just kind of came over to GGC because I wanted to go back to doing substation design. It's
really interesting. So were you, when you met each other, were you doing something on behalf of the company and you were the student? What was the crossover there?
You were the first graduate trainee that we had embedded in our department. Because the graduate trainees go around different areas for 3 or 6 months, or sometimes a fortnight, depending on what they can get out of it. I didn't realise there was only 6 of you, but
I think there was only 6 of us.
But traditionally, you'd always gone to sort of project management and substation engineering, and sort of the kind of the core disciplines of the business that everybody kind of knew and loved, coming into network development was not normal. And you were the first graduate that came in and spent some time with us.
Aye, which was it was the fun part, because you actually got to see how does actually you get to where we're about to build something.
Yeah.
All the different iterations you have to kind of go through. So it gave you a kind of a hindsight of like whatever you decide then isn't actually your final decision. So
It's understanding the decisions you're making and the sort of the consequences of that. And even, I think there's a lot of people don't actually even fully appreciate why they're doing what they're doing. And we were very, very close to the system planning teams, the people that model the network, and try and work out what the system needs to allow it to deliver what's being demanded of it.
And then you get system planning, throwing things down back at you and go, actually, yes, last week we said you need this, but this week you need this as well.
Yeah.
Or we don't need that anymore, take it out.
That is the challenge of networks, because it's a live thing, it's dynamic. So we're in at GGC, we're in a bit of a very, very unusual situation where our network doesn't currently exist. So it can change, but it can change theoretically. But it does, and I get that can be quite frustrating when you think, right, well, we know what we're planning for, we know what we're designing, we know what we're managing, we know what we're consenting, and something changes. And you're like, yeah, but we were doing that. Yeah, but the network has changed. We've got a new customer, or we've lost a customer, or I don't know. If you've got a network that's been around for a long time, you have assets that start to age and you have to replace it. And every time something changes, it has a knock-on effect. And it's a live, dynamic system, and it is always changing.
That's a really good point, because in the stuff we've spoke about previously, publicly, or when we're at conferences or whatever that may be, we don't really touch on the fact that our future is beholden on everyone else.
Yes.
Demand, customers, all those things you've just touched on. We don't ever really make that point. But we are on this tightrope 24/7 of everyone else's decisions or outcomes. And it's a really hard place to navigate.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you guys really sit on that area where you have to change all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that takes a certain type of person, which I think is where the experience side comes into when we deliberately try and bring the experienced people in. We're nowhere near ready for graduates yet. But you guys are gold dust, what you're saying now, because me and Owen, all the time, we dream and we talk about postgrads and how that looks in this business. Yeah. And you guys have just told your stories exactly what we want. Yeah. That's what we want for this business. And you're proof of that, when now it's going to be easier to enable that also. Because I'm sure there was some adversity, right, in coming through those periods. We had a chat before we went live, and I was interested and surprised to hear some comments and things. So, yeah, it wouldn't have always been easy. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I don't know if it was hard.
It was the unknown. That's what we're saying, isn't it?
And it is difficult to look back at things with hindsight and go, well, that was hard. You know, you have to approach it with a sense of humour. You didn't challenge somebody saying something that you would probably cringe at being said in 2026. You didn't challenge presumptions because to some degree you'd already been set up with those expectations that was how it was going to be. You know, when you decide that you want to be an engineer at the age of 13 or 14 and your parents perhaps go, yes, well, you know, but you might change your mind. You might grow out of it. You might stop being a feminist and
that's it, right? They're saying that because you were a woman.
Because you were doing something that wasn't considered traditional. But yeah, the idea that you were doing it because it was genuinely what was your curiosity. I'm not saying it was completely dismissed, but that wasn't the gut reaction to it.
Yeah.
See, because mine was completely different.
Yeah.
My parents were all for me being an engineer.
I say absolutely.
It's
totally supported me, but it was like, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
but we are, I think importantly, we are...
They actually put it out in front of me and said, what about engineering?
Oh, really?
How many years do you think we are apart from your point to your point of 10. Breaking that to...
Oh, it's just 10 years between us.
I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but clearly in the industry, that has been a big jump in mentality.
Yeah.
It must have been.
Yeah.
So yeah, we joked about we talked about sites. I asked if you guys
site
have worked
toilets.
on sites.
Yes, site toilets have been interesting.
Fiona's had more site experience. Just explain the site situation.
So site toilets was the female didn't really have a dedicated female toilet. It was a disabled toilet, but that disabled toilet you would have to ask for the key because they used it for the cleaning stuff for the
storeroom.
the site compound.
It's a storeroom
yeah.
for the cleaning
So it was
products.
It was a
I
storeroom
think
for
cringe
human-
is a good word. I think offended is because you knew no different. Offended
Yeah.
is probably
We just
not
used to
right.
go to every site, and
Yeah.
that was what it was.
That
the
was
case.
the gig.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I find it interesting. But equally now, it's still there, right? When I've been on site, I've not seen separate toilets.
Well, I don't see why they should have separate
No.
toilets because, I mean, a toilet's a toilet.
And that's a great
Yes.
way to hear that.
Uh-huh.
A toilet's a
'Cause-
toilet. A toilet and
exactly.
a sink is in the same thing.
Exactly,
you just share
yeah.
toilets. You share toilets
we
at
share
your
a
house.
bathroom
Yeah.
at home. Yeah, why
so
would it? Yeah.
why would you want to? Unless there's dedicated, they're all cubicles, and you have your own, like in big buildings, you have
Mhm.
male and female toilets because the sink's not separate to the actual toilet. But
I love it.
It's that kind of the subtle shift in attitude, like you talked about, that the language used on site changes
Yeah.
when the female colleague turns up.
so when they swear,
If
and
they know
apologise.
you were coming, somebody would sort of make, oh, we made sure that the toilet was cleaned this morning. I don't know why it always comes back to toilets. Yeah, and there was like, if somebody used it before you, and like they always made sure that they left it as they found it, and I'm like, why would you not do that for your
Yeah,
fellow
anyway.
colleague, regardless of gender?
Yeah.
You're all sharing it, so it really shouldn't make a difference.
You're very senior in this business with us here.
Mhm.
Rolling back the years,
Yeah.
could you ever have seen yourself in this senior position based on being a woman?
Based on being a woman, no, I wouldn't have thought about it in that context.
Because that's not what your aims were, or you didn't think it was achievable.
What was my aims? I don't think it was what my aims were. My aims were quite, what's the word? Broad or kind of nebulous. I think I got to that point where I'd been in the industry probably about 20 years. And you'd spent half your career talking to people, and you became, there was always the person in the room that you would seek advice from.
Mm-hmm.
There was always the person that you would want to talk to because you knew they would teach you something, and they were happy to do that. And I've had many, many fantastic mentors in every single business I've worked in. And there's that point at which you can no longer start taking the mick out of your colleagues because they're old enough to be your father. And you're like, better stop doing that. And you go, okay, I want to be that person. I want to be the person that is recognised as having something valuable to share, being approachable, and I talk a lot, as you know, and I'm quite happy to impart whatever knowledge anybody thinks I have that is useful to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my broad goal in terms of job titles, or I never had I want to be that person, because the other thing is, because the industry's changed so much, there isn't a kind of a very definite hierarchy or ranking or whatever. The job titles change. The job title I had in my previous job didn't exist 15 years ago. The role evolved out of the necessity of how the network was changing. Head of engineering is probably something that if you tell your gran, she thinks she knows what it means, because they're words that she thinks she understands. But do the MD actually know what it means unless you're involved with it? No. But if you say, network development manager, what does that actually mean? Nobody questions it. It's why LinkedIn keeps thinking I do something to do with telecoms, because LinkedIn sees the word network. But
So what does a day look like for you guys in terms of work? What's a working week or day look like? Because
Changes.
we are,
really, really quick.
you are desktop based most of the time.
Yeah, we are.
Are you always trying to curate or innovate? Are you waiting for things from other people a lot of the time? What's your days look like?
It varies, to be honest, depending on what's on their to-do list, and usually that to-do list gets changed within the second you write it. So, because everything pops up. I mean, for me at the moment is helping review specs that we've got our what are they called? The consultant engineering team that are writing for our
Owner's engineer.
That's it. Owners engineers that are writing to make sure we've got enough stuff to go out for ITT, and making sure that our consultants are actually designing their substations to what we want, as well as pestering other people in the business to give us information.
Yeah.
So
That's not me, luckily.
No, it's not.
But you find you have there's the to-do list, there's the things that you have to do to do your job. So in your case, review the specification, whatever. And in my case, review the document that I've been written or write the paper for the next thing or prepare the slides for the next meeting. And then there's the other to-do list that just happens at you.
Yeah.
And when because somebody else will have had an idea, like, I've been thinking, what about, would this work? Why is this way? And you find yourself involved in discussions and drawing diagrams and then trying to take pictures of them and hold them up to screens.
I can relate to that. I'd say 50% of my work is ad hoc stuff that comes in that day.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily on your roadmap, but it's a priority to that person, and you always can see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that switching and swatching. I can definitely relate with that.
I mean, it's very collaborative, and it's for all we are part of the engineering team. There's overlaps all over the place. You know,
We're nearly 50% split between men and women.
Oh, that's good.
it's really unusual.
Yeah, really unusual. And I suppose a couple of questions before we looked around it up. What do you see the entry to this sector as the barrier? If it's just the fact that people aren't educated enough to be attracted to it as a lady, or is it that people like us, as IDNOs or whoever, don't put out enough that these are the really cool roles available, this is how it works, and this is your opportunity? What do you think is the barrier at the moment? I say female because of the ratio splits, and the sector is clearly dominated by males.
Yes, it is. And I can't say that I understand that. There are plenty of sufficiently educated, because I think engineering has this funny sort of, in this industry, it's engineering, it's hard.
I think that's the word. It's the fact it's engineering, not grid, not infrastructure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's specific to this sector. I think it's because it's overarched as engineers.
Yeah.
And that is seen as being a man, which is terrible.
Yeah, and it's trying to work out what it takes to break that. So your questions earlier about, the things that we had to put up with when we were in the earlier parts of our career, we didn't think about it because we didn't know any different. And it's therefore, I think it's going to take far, far longer than is acceptable to change it, because how long is it going to take for that narrative to change generation after generation after generation until little girls and little boys just go, I want to be, and they don't colour it. Do you know what I mean? It's a pink job or a blue job or what have you. I think, unfortunately, that it leaves us with the job of being visible.
So I think essentially there's not an answer, which I think we knew anyway.
Yeah.
However,
it's hard.
we as a business do need to take a responsibility, and we're really well placed to do that because of our ratios, because we really believe the people are in the job because of their skill set and value, regardless of anything else.
Yeah.
So we should hold that responsibility to put that out there,
Yeah.
which is sort of what we're doing today.
Yeah.
But just every day, that is what we should be proud of, because that's one of our biggest assets, right?
What's it, Jojo Siwa?
What?
You can dream it, you can be it. But it is like, so we've got that 50% split here. That came as a surprise to me when somebody actually sat and did the maths, and you're like, really? I mean, I knew we had quite a nice sort of gender balance, but I had no idea it was so well balanced. When other companies have patted themselves on the back for having 30% female staff.
Yeah.
But that was across the business, not in technical roles. When you take it back to, again, it's that engineering, the technical roles, we are still underrepresented. But as much as I would love to see that, gender discussion be removed, it is important, but we just need more engineers. The UK needs more engineers, regardless. And if we are putting young girls off from following a technical degree at a young age, that's 50% of the talent pool that we're missing out on.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it leaves us going,
It's on us.
You have to be a visible technical person.
I also think, when you go to conferences or panels and stuff, I think you see it a wee bit more now, but it sounds awful. Older men are just sitting on there because they have been in the industry for so long.
Yeah.
You don't have women up there.
There's not so many, time served women.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my generation are starting to to come
That's
into that
see,
now.
It will,
it will change.
Change. So it's going to take.
It's going to take another 2 or 3 generations, I think, for it to filter down.
Which is a long time.
Yeah.
It is.
But we'll definitely do our bit, and this whole business always sort of sits with this leaving a legacy piece, whether that's the grid, the infrastructure, what we build, the capacity it's at, and the company we are. I think that forms a massive part of that, and I think we're already doing a good job of it. We're going to close off, but I'd like to leave by getting a piece of advice from both of you on why people should consider, people, not gender, why people should consider engineering from your own personal perspective.
For me, it gave me a lot of different avenues to go down in engineering. It opens up anything, really. You don't have to go down the way I've gone. You can go in a lot of different industries. People can become accountants and stuff like this. You're not specified as an engineer, but when you do engineering, it opens so much doors for you to actually go and do anything, really.
Love that.
I mean, engineering is such a broad topic in itself. There are so many different disciplines within that, whether it's like to the tiny microprocessor stuff that I don't understand, to big wires on towers and power stations and everything in between. It's given me an opportunity to travel the world. It's a job that allows me to use my creativity. I think there is that from the sciences point of view that, well, you know, it's very binary, 1 and 1 is 2, but once you understand those principles, you can apply them and you can use your creativity and you can keep poking at a question, keep poking at a problem and going, yeah, but why? And what if? And why not? And if you're curious, then this is an excellent industry to be working in. And it will keep you engaged on a day-by-day basis for the rest of your career.
Amazing. I'm not sure how long we've rolled for, but I bet it's longer than we realise.
Really?
This has been super intriguing. I've loved it. And I think we'll do another one of these. Maybe drop another Scottish contingent in here. I think we'll invite Jean along because I think there's a really, really good part 2 for this, just general engineering. Say again? Yeah, we will. We'll come up to Edinburgh, actually. Yeah, we'll get up to Edinburgh, definitely. But I've really, really enjoyed that. It went very quick. I wish we could keep going. But yeah, thank you very much for giving me both of your times. Always a pleasure to spend time with you guys anyway. Any excuse if I'm honest, which is good.